Shri Madhavji, I don't know which of the other speakers are still virtually on or off, distinguished delegates. You know, it's always the most challenging proposition to be the last speaker, to stand between a sense of complete fatigue, to stand between lunch, and to stand between conflicting flight schedules. And on top of that, the time there is already showing that time's up before I've even begun. Nevertheless, let me, at the risk of some repetition, try to assess this India Ideas Conclave. Now, whenever I think about this session, this wonderful gathering which we had post-COVID times in Bengaluru, I'm reminded of the time almost 2 decades ago, right, Ram Madhav? Almost 2 decades ago, when some of us used to gather for the Thinkers Conference. And the Thinkers Conference was a clutch of various individuals, some fits, some complete misfits, all of whom were with one purpose of how to rectify a particular narrative, how to get ourselves registered on the intellectual map of India in the face of formidable odds. Our concerns then were very, very different. They were, if you look back in hindsight, somewhat limited, sometimes a bit too overambitious. From there, to move to this dissection of the frontiers of technology and how we can adjust to it has been a great leap. It's been a monumental leap. It's a monumental leap which is not for us who've attended this. I think it's a big leap of India, of where we were some 20 years ago to what our concerns are today. And I think it's important to look at how much our perspectives have changed and how we are looking at the future. I remember in those times, we looked at the future with a degree of trepidation, of what will the next, how will we blunder across, how will we blunder through? It was really a question of blundering through. And now we're looking at something, how do we move ahead? There's a difference. There's a big difference. And I think that difference is there. But I fear this difference has yet not become a complete epidemic, which it should be. India is a vast country. It's uneven. I came 3 days ago from Kolkata. Now, if a conference of this variety, and I don't mean to denigrate my home state in any meaningful way, if a conference of this variety, with this subject, with these concerns, were put there, they would say you're completely mad. Because it doesn't correspond with their sense of reality. And I think it's important to recognize that even in India today, when we're talking about a mental transformation of India, there are those who are still fixated on this idea that we can settle or we should settle for the second best or the third best. That the celebration of mediocrity is still held up as an ideal in large parts. And I think this is really the conflict which is going on in India. What should our aspirations be? Should our aspirations be tailored to the lowest common denominator? Or should the task of leadership would be to raise the bar as high as possible? And I think this is a question of leadership. This is a question of how much you can motivate, how much you can persuade people. If you settle for bhai sab chalta hai, which was the national philosophy till some time ago, sab chalta hai. Then you celebrate jugaad. Then you celebrate, isn't it great that the washing machine is being used for lassi? Yes, it's a great feat. But is that your height of creativity? I remember in the 70s and 80s, the height of creativity used to be, and the intellectual powers of a lot of very, very talented Indians used to be focused on how best to defeat the taxation system. Most innovative, ingenious thought processes were applied, and I think they came up with fantastic solutions. They were always 5 steps ahead of whoever was trying to monitor them. Now that was where the thought process, the creative talents of Indians were utilized. From there we've come across. Now if you look at, I've spent the past few years studying the political thoughts of modern India from about the 18th century onwards. And one of the concerns of those days of Indians till about the middle of the 20th century lay in asking very fundamental question. Why did we become a subject nation? The creative Indians of that time, whether it's Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, M.G. Ranade, anyone else, Dadabhai Naoroji, anybody you think of, they may have come up with different interpretations, but the question they asked was that, why did we become a subject nation? And a lot of the prescriptions which people gave to the people was, how do you restore a sense of self-confidence, self-esteem back to Indians? It was really a battle to gain self-confidence. Some people thought that self-confidence could be achieved if we go back to our indigenous traditions. There were others who said that the best thing, and today is one of the centenary of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Now, Raja Ram Mohan Roy is hailed as one of the modern Indians, the pioneer of modern India. He thought that one of the best ways we could do this was actually by absorbing as much of Western civilization as possible into our bloodstream. So there were different prescriptions, but the idea was basically the same. That how do we get the sense of self-esteem back? How do we put some meaning into our nationhood? And this is a debate which has been ongoing since independence. And the various questions which have been asked is this question: what sort of a nation? And I, one of those people who believed that in India is a nation, unlike a modern trend of some people who think we are a union of states alone. What sort of a nation are we going to be? And I think this is the fundamental question once again, that we've made this leap, that self-confidence now we have in plenty. You see the body language of our cricket team. I remember the cricketers of the 60s and 70s. The day we won a match was a cause of national celebration, which endured for as long. And as far as their fielding was concerned, if they stopped a boundary, that too was sometimes a cause of a national celebration. And they were petrified of fast bowling. That was the Indian team. Now some people say the cricket is a metaphor for the national character. Now, look at the cricket of the 60s and the 70s to the cricket now. Lord's is no longer the headquarters of world cricket. Cricket is dictated from India. India calls the tune. We set the bar. We've decided the money is here, the audience is here, the enthusiasm is here, everything is here. Everyone else follows, and they don't like it. I'll tell you that also. But it's the shift. So that self-confidence we are not lacking. In fact, we've got too much of it. Our diplomats have been accused, again yesterday, of being needlessly arrogant. I don't know. I mean, there are arrogant people. There were people who were arrogant when we had no basis for it also. But I think if people, our representatives, are no longer willing to accept what is meekly accept what is being given to them, I think that's a good thing. We are attempting to set our own narrative, but it is still work in progress. Let me just tell you this. Those who think that we've actually arrived, I think I must caution you. Yes, we have taken the determination to go ahead, but we still haven't arrived. And I think being confronted and frontally being exposed to what technology, the challenges it offers, is a cause to actually think that how we must, as a nation, reboot ourselves. And how we must shape our priorities, our political agendas, our social agendas, our personal lives too in some ways. And I think this is a very exciting time in that sense in India, when there is clearly a transformation, where there is a clear transformation and a sense of a nation actually coming into its own. We haven't yet fully done it, but we can see the process quite clearly. And how we can egg the process on, because that's the goal. And that excitement is what is driving a lot of us. It's no longer a case of, oh, now never mind, we've got to go on and on and on. It's not that. There is a challenge, there is an excitement, we matter in the world, and we must reflect that self-confidence with a sense of awareness, with a sense of responsibility, but most important, with a sense of national pride. And I hope that message comes across quite clearly to the coming generation, to the youngsters, to everybody here, which that sense should prove infectious. And I hope for that pandemic of self-esteem, of self-confidence, of national pride, to actually replace the devastating one which we've got over. Thank you very much for coming, and I'm so glad we could all meet after a long time. Thank you.